Buenos dias, GCTV. What's happening with it, man? And in the Menudo style in direct fashion, we're going to get straight into it. But before we do, I want you to hit that like and subscribe. Put that notification bell on also. That way you're directed in the direction of all the dope content that I'm kicking. And let's get into it, right? What I wanted to talk about today was something that I've heard that's being said a lot lately. It wasn't said back in my days, but it seems like, God, it's being said a lot more. And that's the word or the phrase watered down. Is the game truly watered down? Is the gang banging on the streets watered down? Is the wigglization and the way cats are moving nowadays watered down? Now, I have my 2 cents. I have my perspective on it. And, I've thought, a long time ago, I was making the assumption that maybe it was. Maybe the game was a little bit watered down. Maybe individuals were moving differently, not according to what I'm used to, But after reanalyzing and thinking about it for a little while, the game is not watered down. It's just different. Different era, different times, different gente, different people. Things change. Does it change for the better or the worse? Well, the world that we live in is a very horrible world. It's a terrible world. So you can't expect things that you've done in the past to be the expectations of now. Now is different. You see the individuals that are on the thumbnail, 3 guys that have lost their lives in the game, whether it be the rap game or the street game or even incarcerated in prison. They've lost their lives at a very young age. And these are 3 very well-respected guys that were in the game. You have Money Sign Suede, who last year lost his life in prison. What happened to this guy? Truly, it's unknown. There's been a lot of hearsay, a lot of he said, she said, a lot of different people thinking about or speaking on what could have happened with this guy. What's the reason behind his demise? Was it hate? Was it a mistake that he made on his part? Was it just plain old simple, got caught up? It happens in prison. Prison's a very dangerous place. You could get into it with the wrong person, and not everybody knows about it. Us out here, we're not knowing, just based upon his celebrity status and who he was. And he had a lot of young kids looking up to him, a lot of rappers in the game representing his name. Him being killed, him being murdered in prison in the showers, seemed to take the breath away of a lot of people. It made a lot of people reanalyze the way they move, about the way they're thinking. Is it truly worth it? You can find yourself incarcerated, and at any given time, you can get something put in you. That's part of life. It's always been like that. So no, the game isn't watered down. When you go into prison, you go into the penitentiary, it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done on the streets. None of that counts. What counts is what's in front of you. What counts is how your actions are displayed while in there. What counts is the respect that you're given and you're shown by your actions. That's it, or you will be corrected. You will be disciplined. You will catch a checking. You will get killed. And in his case, I don't think we're ever going to find out the real reasoning behind it. I know some of us behind the scenes do know actually, what went on with that guy, but it's better to be left unspoken rather than to speak on when it's really none of your business. It's really nothing that you should speak on, because then you can find yourself in the shower with something in you. It's a horrible existence, a horrible way to go. But I don't think in that case the game was watered down. I think he just found himself in a situation and that he wasn't able to make it out of. But it's rest in peace to Money Sign Suede, because, at the end of the day, we don't wish that upon anybody, but it happens. It's nothing out of the norm. It's nothing that wasn't breaking news. I think just because of who he was and his name, and because he was signed to Atlantic Records, and because he was making moves, he still was incarcerated. He still was doing dumb shit on the streets, and he still found out that the game is not watered down. Now you have another young cat representing the Sul, Little Travieso. And to this one right here was your typical gangbanging. was your typical, you know, opening your mouth can get it closed real quick. A lot of the things he was pushing, the narrative he was pushing in his music was gangbanging, was that he was really on them streets, that he was really pushing a movement, that he was really a true believer in his cause and his barrio. And when you're out there doing that, that's to be expected, the demise of one. What do you think is you got coming? You either got incarceration or death coming, because that's what you're asking for. Seeking, you shall receive. Asking, you will be granted. The early bird will always catch that worm or that bala, you know, and in his case, he was really gangbanging, using his music, utilizing his music to push his narrative, utilizing his music rather than, you know, to get the party cracking or get the party jumping, or maybe open the caja so that way he can make better moves and bigger moves for his familia and himself. He was using it as a tool to narrate his gangbanging antics, to narrate what he had going on. Now, I'm not going to take nothing from him and say he wasn't a real one, because in that game, you're judged based upon your actions. You're judged based upon what you're doing. And whether it be the rap game or the street game, homie, you have an image to uphold and you must uphold it. And he definitely was doing that. You know, he was another youngster, another young kid that proved the game wasn't watered down, that proved he was really living what he was saying. And there's not a lot of people that can speak on that. A lot of people will talk their high power shit behind the lens, but not really be out there in the streets, you know, holding that pistol or doing what they're saying they're doing. Now, I, as a grown man, as an older adult, as someone who's been through the game many times, I can tell you it doesn't thrill me, or it's nothing new. It's not like I get a kick out of seeing youngsters gangbanging, because I know ultimately there's a price to pay for everything. Everything you say and everything you do, every move you make, there's repercussions. And he definitely felt that. Now, again, that's another case that, you know, of a youngster out there doing his thing, that his life got cut short fast. Now, who's to blame? Not the individual who did it. That was coming. The individual that was actually speaking and talking that high power shit and was out there gang banging, man, had that coming. Now, again, we don't wish death upon no one, but it seems like it's happening constantly. It seems like a lot of these young rappers are the ones that are becoming victimized because of the words speaketh about their mouth. You know, when you're doing something out your dental, someone's going to try to come and knock out your frontal. That's just how it is. That's the game. You know, Little Travieso, of course, you know, he succumbed to his injuries. He was shot. He was murdered. But it wasn't no surprise. Again, the game is not watered down. When you're doing what you does, cuz you're going to get what you got. Now, another individual out of the Sacramento area who was also a young rapper, a Northern California rapper, Lil TYS. He's another guy that was doing his thing. But see, he moved a little bit differently, albeit he was representing Hispano, albeit he was gangbanging, and he was really out in them Sacramento streets. That's the point. Sacramento streets. Now, I've said it time and time again, and I'll say it more times than one. Sacramento moves differently. It's a war zone. It truly is a place you don't want to be if you're not ready for that action. It truly is a place where street politics, barrio politics, hood politics, and the politics of prison all come into play. There's a lot of political things going on out there in the city of Sacramento, and it seems like Lil TYS found himself entrenched or caught up in a situation, whether it be personal or political. He got caught up. Now, I've heard from many different people, different sources, different gente have told me, you know, it was a personal thing. People were setting him up because they were hating on him. They felt a certain, you know, they felt he was doing too much or he was moving too fast. And he was definitely coming up in the game. His name was sparking a flame. He was taking off. He was going to be the And these guys tend to get all the clout. They tend to get all the respect because they're bigger, well-known rappers. But they're not the only ones in Sakura. There's a lot of little youngsters, man, coming up in the game, people we haven't even heard about that are making moves, making them power moves, wearing shower shoes. But at the end of the day, you know, the game is not watered down. You know, if you're out there pushing a narrative, if you're out there gangbanging, you're going to get clipped. You're going to get hit, whether it be hate, or it could be envy, or it could be just, you know, something that you find yourself personally caught up in. Whatever it is, little TYS did succumb again to his injuries. He's another young cat murdered. I say that to say this. The game is not watered down like people have been saying. Hey, homie, the game is different nowadays. It's all fucking watered down. Vatos are wearing tight pants. They're wearing makeup. It's a trip. Tight pants are the style, homie. The style's going to change. The image is going to change. The beliefs are going to be the same. It doesn't matter if it's a young kid on the block with the fucking Pontius Pilate haircut and some skin tight pants. He's going to pull something extended up out of them pants and let you have it. The game is not watered down. See, this core, this foundation that was set many decades ago, years ago, you know, whether it be behind the walls or on the streets, depending upon what hood and what you claim, what your affiliation is always going to be that. There are going to be some changes and a few little different minor things tweaked out and done to it. But at the end of the day, it's going to continue to be based upon that belief system of the fight against oppression, the fight for equality, and of course, the education of oneself. So that way that your entity, so that way that your group can push. You know, when it's all said and done, a lot of these street gangs don't realize, don't understand that everything that is being done and the reasons why they're wiggling the way they are is because it was done before them. A lot of these things that they do nowadays have been happening. They're not new to this. It's true to this. This is what's been going on for several years. It just seems like people try to play the game a little bit differently. Now, I will say this, as far as the game being watered down, it's not watered down. It's just taken a little bit of a different path and a different course. And this is the path that's going down now. Whereas back in our days, it was all about gangbanging the streets, representing your hood and your barrio, letting everyone know you were primera, you were number one, letting everyone know your barrio was untouched and not to be fucked with. And that's why there was a lot of red on red crime, because there was a lot of competition, competitiveness in street gangs. There was a lot of people that wanted to push their narrative and show everyone that their barrio was the first and foremost. You had the Crips against the Bloods. They had them blood ties. Of course, you had North against South and North red on red and blue on blue. And it was because everybody was representing their people, their gente, and their small circle. Okay, that still goes on. But what goes on even more than that is the chasing of the bag, the chasing of the clout. See, now it's all about that image more so in social media than it is on the streets. Whatever you've done on the streets, you're going to gain that reputation in that name. And there's a lot of pickers and choosers. There could be a homeboy that got caught up in the same ranfla as you, did the same jale, you guys handled the same business, but at the end of the day, he's not going to get that respect that you got because your name is more well-known because of the work you put in, or because people like you, you have that image, you dress a certain way, or you speak a certain way, or you're a rapper, or whatever the case may be. You're always going to get acknowledged, maybe more so than that homeboy that ain't really doing as much, yet he's putting in a little bit of work. That's the way of the world. That's the way the world is. Everybody needs a gangster to look at. Just like John Gotti was the face of the mob. He was that gangster to look at. Whereas his underlings and people that were actually doing the dirt and putting in a lot of work didn't get that recognition. And I'm sure they felt some hate. I'm sure they felt some type of way about it. But you have to understand, in the game, there's always going to be that vato who's that image. There's always going to be that vato who's that person that everyone looks to or looks at as the face of the game. You know, it's just like our president of the United States. He's not really speaking for us. He's just our face. And you have to understand that that's part of gangbanging. And a lot of these things are taught and instilled and educated into your mind when you're young. You know, don't worry about being that one, homie. You know, as long as you're content and as long as the gente around you, the homeboys, are content with the work you're putting in and what you're doing, you're going to definitely be recognized by the people that it counts most to. Because believe me, all that counts, especially when you're a norteño or sureño, is what is done behind them walls. What happens on the streets definitely is not counted. It doesn't matter, humps. You know, as long as you didn't fuck up. Now, when you do something bad, that's counted. When you do something negative, you know, or get a bad case or told on, that's definitely held against you. But as far as, you know, the work that you put in and the name that you've accumulated, or these accolades you've accumulated from your gente, none of that counts, homie. Only what counts is what you display, your characteristics behind the walls. Now, when it comes to the game being watered down, it's not watered down. It just changed. It just changed. People are not tripping off the gangbanging as much anymore. There's a lot more unity. There's a lot more conversations. There's a lot of more gente working together because everybody is chasing that bag or that recognition. That's where the game has changed. That's where a lot of the veteranos and the OGs like to say the game is watered down. But I don't see it as watered down. I see it as different. But what they say back in the days, I've been told this, I'm sure you've been told this, is that the game truly rolls in a circle and repeats itself. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of these different guys getting back to the old school ways. A lot of them maybe waking up and realizing that if they're going to be part of something that truly had a lot of respect back in the days, they need to keep that ball rolling. Because what happens in the eyes of a lot of civilians and a lot of people is they look at gang members or they look at people who are consider themselves in the game and they realize, man, yes, man, maybe it has changed. Yes, maybe these guys aren't as tough as nails like the guys their predecessors, the guys that came before them. And that's not true. That's really not true. When it comes to gang banging and all that, you're as hard as your weakest link. Your group is always going to be judged by the person that's dragging. So the main thing to do, what I was taught, was to keep everybody tight, homes, pura, all up to par, structured, very structured. That's why you see a lot of these groups and gangs within prison or even on the streets that are very structured get respected a little bit more because they got their shit together. They know which direction they're headed in. Now, when it comes to gang banging, man, I know a lot of you people are going to say the same thing I'm going to say. Why does it matter? Well, it's part of life. It's part of life. Would you rather have a whole bunch of renegade ass motherfuckers running around out there, man, just doing whatever they want, committing crimes with no structure, with no one to answer to? Absolutely not. These medals, these leaders, these people who display leadership qualities and skills are there for a reason, man, because they're able to dictate the program in the righteous fashion. They're able to keep their people contained enough so that, everything goes and flows as it should. The game is not watered down. The game is just different. I hate when people keep saying that. It's watered down, homie. These Vatos ain't nothing like us. They couldn't even walk in our shoes. Nah, they walk in more comfortable shoes nowadays. Don't never judge a book by its cover. Don't never think that these young kids, these youngsters, man, won't get off where they're mad at. The only difference is now there's none of these. It's all gunplay. That's what's changed. There's no more room for talking yourself up out of a situation or pulling up to a fade. Now, I hear a lot of guys talk about, hey, let's catch that fade. Let's catch that fade. But you'll notice that there really ain't a fade to be caught. When they're talking about let's catch that fade, they're talking about bop guns. And that's real. That's what's different. The truth of the matter is, just like a basketball game, the way to compute is, you hear a lot of people say, oh, man, these guys couldn't fade Jordan. They couldn't play in that era. They couldn't play in that era. That era was tough. This era is soft now. If you touch them, it's a foul. Yeah, but that era is not as fast as this era. Same thing with gangbanging. This era is quick to pull the pistol fast. We always had those homeboys back in the days that were quick to pull the pistol, and they either got one or two things, either recognized like, damn, that homie's a G, he's about that shit, or he got disciplined and reprimanded. Hey, homie, you pulled it too quick. We weren't ready for that. Let's get, what are you doing? We're gang banging. You're banging on the gang. It's different. These kids nowadays are different. Pistol time. There is no time to fight. And a lot of people say, well, that's because they can't fight. Well, how do we know if you ain't never seen them fight? There's some homeboys that are naturally talented. Now, of course, practice makes permanent, not perfect. But a lot of people ain't utilizing the hand skills, or it's just not what's done nowadays. Nowadays, people are not pulling up to a payphone, setting up the fucking fight for the fade. Nowadays, people are pulling out their cell phone and recording shit. It's just changed. But it doesn't mean it's watered down. Because if it was watered down, you wouldn't have all these deaths of these youngsters happening constantly. That's not watered down. What that is gangbanging continuing on. The gangs in LA will never die. Just multiply. Ice-T said it. And the same thing goes for It's Raining Game in Northern California. When Mac Dre said It's Raining Game, he didn't mean game like game on bitches, Holmes. He meant it's running gang. It's really out there. So every different area, man, is going to constantly have their gangsters. They're going to constantly have their people out there doing it. Is it a great thing for society? Absolutely not. We know that gangs are considered the scourge of society, that they're considered, not the ones that you want to grow up to be. But the fact of the matter and the truth is, reality is, gangs are always going to be there. It's something that people are going to have to deal with. It's something that people are going to have to understand. It's part of life, especially when you're a Chicano, Mexicano, Black, Woods, brother. Everybody has their cliques. Everybody has their thing going on, and that's just how it's going to be. So my point is, the game is not watered down, because you wouldn't have individuals dying at an alarming rate. Whether it be in prison or outside of prison, the game continues, and it's going to always continue. And that's just the way it is. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose. Get everything that you want coming. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the strive to struggle and the struggle to strive. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle and struggle and strive for me and mines and what I truly believe in. And that's the unity of all gente. And that's what it really is, man. Gracias. I appreciate you. GCTV. We doing what we does. Cuz.